Hello, everybody. Welcome on in. I hope you're all having a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. I hope you're all taking care of yourself. Today we are here. We're doing a little something different, little something which I've been asked to do. So we're doing a little experiment. We're going to do a little bit of story time. So yeah, I have a book here to read today. Neil Gaiman. Called The Sleeper and the Spindle. I appreciate if you're used to my usual content. This might not be your cup of tea, but hopefully you'll find this is enjoyable still. We'll be going for a relaxing vibe. Had a little bit of scuff at. I was hoping to use my 3D model, which I've been setting back up again, but sadly it's not quite ready. So instead, we are going to use the 2D model, and yes, hopefully it should be fine. Grab a little book for the fox. That's quite a cute idea, actually. I'll do that. As such, I have turned off the sound alerts, just because don't want to be interrupted by blaring comments. But yes. Let me see if I can find a book asset for this while we. But I hope everybody's had a good day so far. If this isn't your cup of tea, again, I completely understand. Please feel free to join us tomorrow. We should be playing some Dredge. Hopefully that should be a bit more on par for our usual content. But yes, let's see if I can find this little book for us to read. But that's a little book that might do. I think this is a. Yes, I think we can use this one. Grab this. Just move it over to assets. But yeah, said, I hope you're all doing okay. Emmy, thank you very much for getting first, and thank you for getting Rolf, thank you very much for getting second, and thank you for your daily check-in. And Reen, thank you very much for getting third. Shit, you being in the promo as well. Reen, if you're busy and if you need to go do other stuff, I completely understand. I appreciate being here, but make sure you're taking care of yourself and do first, okay? This little book. I'm playing Minecraft. Sounds fun. I didn't think you would be doing that, yeah? I thought you were going to be doing that later on tonight. Let me just position. Oh, a big book. There's a little bit smaller. Now we've got a little book. Got a little book here for us. Me too. Are your family still with you? Move from desk to bed. Well, hopefully, I'll try not to put you to sleep, Emmy. I'll try not to put you to sleep. We'll see anyway, we'll see. I'm just gonna increase the as well, just to make sure. Make book a tad bigger? Okay. How's that? A little bit better? Just sort out as well. Yeah. Like I said, we're just doing a little different today. I'll just turn up the mic input volume a tad. There we go. Hopefully that'll be a bit better. Hopefully you'll be able to hear me. Lovely. Okay. I'll make a separate input, I think, for when I do these streams, so that I don't have to fiddle with the mic settings too much. But anyway, okay. Yes, it has to be visible. Oh, I think that's visible. Hopefully it's visible. If it isn't, then do let me know. But yeah, so, as I said, I have this book here called The Sleeper and the Spindle by Neil Gaiman. I quite enjoy Neil Gaiman's books. I first came across them when I started reading Good Omens, and ever since I read Good Omens, I've been in love with them ever since. They're very enjoyable, very enjoyable. But yeah, so I believe this is a play on the Sleeping Beauty story, so it'll be interesting to see where this goes. Good Omens, like the show? Yes, yeah. It was originally a book. If you haven't read the book, even if you've seen the show, I highly recommend you read the book as well. It's an excellent book, very entertaining. There's some nuances that you get in the book which you don't quite get in the show, and they're excellent. It's very good. It's very good. So I can't recommend it enough. Excellent book, one of my favourites. I feel like I should also, I think next time I do this, I'll get myself a nice little, I'll get myself a different background scene as well. Maybe something a bit comfier. Don't get me wrong, I think the bar with the fire is quite comfy, but still, I think we can get something a bit nicer. Okay. Right, we will start, as with all things, at the beginning. Library with a big puffy chair. Yeah, that's an excellent idea. That's an excellent idea, Emmy. Yes. It was the closest kingdom to the Queen's, as the crow flies. Not even the crows flew it. The high mountain range that served as the border between the two kingdoms discouraged crows as much as it discouraged people, and it was considered unpassable. More than one enterprising merchant on each side of the mountains had commissioned folk to hunt from the mountain pass that would, if it were there, have made a rich man or woman of anyone who controlled it. The silks of Dorimar could have been in Cancellaire in weeks, in months, not years. But there was no such pass to be found, and so, although the two kingdoms shared a common border, nobody crossed from one kingdom to the next. You want the chair bigger than the fox? Okay. When I change the scene, I'll make sure that there's a bigger chair for the fox. Yes. Even the dwarfs, who were tough and hardy and composed of magic as much as of flesh and blood, could not go over the mountain range. This was not a problem for the dwarfs. They did not go over the mountain range. They went under it. 3 dwarfs, travelling as swiftly as one, through the dark paths beneath the mountains. "Hurry, hurry," said the dwarf at the rear. "We have to buy her the finest silken cloth in Dorimar. If we do not hurry, perhaps it will be sold, and we will be forced to buy her the second finest cloth." We know, said the dwarf at the front. "And we shall buy her a case to carry it back in, so it will remain perfectly clean and untouched by dust." The dwarf in the middle said nothing. He was holding his stone tightly, not dropping it or losing it, and was concentrating on nothing else but this. The stone was a ruby, rough-hewn from the rock and the size of a hen's egg. It was worth a kingdom when cut and set, and would be easily exchanged for the finest silk of Dorimar. It would not have occurred to the dwarfs to give the young queen anything they had dug themselves from beneath the earth. That would have been too easy, too routine. It's the distance that makes a gift magical, so the dwarfs believed. Now we move to the queen. The queen woke early that morning. "A week from today," she said aloud, "a week from today I shall be married." It seemed both unlikely and extremely final. She wondered how she would feel to be a married woman. It would be the end of her life, she decided, if life was a time of choices. In a week from now, she would have no choices. She would reign over her people. She would have children. Perhaps she would die in childbirth, perhaps she would die as an old woman, or in battle. But the path to her death, heartbeat by heartbeat, would be inevitable. She could hear the carpenters in the meadows beneath the castle, building the seats that would allow her people to watch her marry. Each hammer blow sounded like a heartbeat. The three dwarfs scrambled out of a hole in the side of the riverbank and clambered up into the meadow. 1, 2, 3. They climbed to the top of a granite outcrop, stretched, kicked, jumped, and stretched once more. Then they sprinted north, towards the cluster of low buildings that made the village of Gith, and in particular to the village inn. The innkeeper was their friend. They had bought him a bottle of Cancellaire wine, deep red, sweet and rich, and nothing like the sharp, pale wines of those parts. As they always did. He would feed them and send them on their way and advise them. Reen, thank you very much for the head pats. I appreciate that. We do enjoy the head pads. Very nice. So comfy. The innkeeper, chest as huge as his barrels, beard as bushy and as orange as a fox's brush, was in the tap room. It was early in the morning, and on the dwarf's previous visits at that time of the day, the room had been empty. But now there must have been 30 people in that place, and not one of them looked happy. The dwarfs who had expected to sidle into an empty tap room found all eyes upon them. "Good Master Foxen," said the tallest dwarf to the innkeeper. "Lads," said the innkeeper, who thought that the dwarfs were boys, for all that they were perhaps 5 times his age. "I know you travel the mountain passes. We need to get out of here." "What's happening?" said the smallest of the dwarfs. "Sleep," said the sot by the window. "Plague," said a finely dressed woman. "Doom," exclaimed a tinker, his saucepans rattling as he spoke. "Doom is coming." "We travel to the capital," said the tallest dwarf, who was no bigger than a child. "Is there plague in the capital?" "It is not plague," said the sot by the widow, whose beard was long and grey and stained yellow with beer and wine. "It is sleep, I tell you." "How can sleep be a plague?" said the smallest dwarf, who was beardless. "A witch," said the sot. "A bad fairy," corrected a fat-faced man. Sunny day and joy, thank you very much for the follow. I appreciate that. Thank you for helping us hit our 200 follower goal. I appreciate that. Thank you very much for joining us today. We're trying something a little different today. We don't normally do ASMR content, but I was advised that it might be enjoyable for people to hear me reading a story to them. So yes, today we're reading The Sleeper and the Spindle by Neil Gaiman. Enjoying them tingles? I'm glad. I hope this is enjoyable for everybody. And yes, thank you very much once again for following. It means a lot to me for everybody who's come in and support me on this journey so far. A bad fairy, corrected a fat-faced man. She was an enchantress, as I heard it, interposed the pot girl. Whatever she was, said the sot, she was not invited to a birthing celebration. That's all tosh, said the tinker. She would have cursed the princess whether she'd been invited to the name-a-day party or not. She was one of those forest witches, driven to the margins 1,000 years ago, and a bad lot. She cursed the babe at birth, such that when the girl was 18, she would prick her finger and sleep forever. The fat-faced man wiped his forehead. He was sweating, although it was not warm. As I heard it, she was going to die, but another fairy, good one this time, commuted her magical death sentence to one of sleep. Magical sleep, he added. Perhaps update the title? Thank you, Reen. Thank you for the congratulations. What shall I update the title to, Emmy? Shall I say what we're reading? Let's say... Yes. Reading the Sleeper and the Spindle game. I hope I've spelled the name correctly. Let's double check. Yes. Hydrate, thank you very much, Reen. I will do that now. Thank you for the hydrate. I appreciate it. Lovely. So, said the sot, she pricked her finger or something or other, and she fell asleep. And the other people in the castle, the lord and the lady, the butcher, baker, milkmaid, lady-in-waiting, all of them slept as she slept. None of them has aged a day since they closed their eyes. There were roses, said the pot girl, roses that grew up around the castle, and the forest grew thicker until it became impassable. This was what, 100 years ago? 60, perhaps 80, said a woman who had not spoken until now. I know because my aunt Letita remembered it happening. When she was a girl, and she was no more than 70 when she died of the bloody flux, and that was only 5 years ago come summer's end. And brave men, continued the pot girl, aye, and brave women too, they say, have attempted to travel to the forest of Eclair, to the castle at its heart, to wake the princess, and in waking her, to wake all the sleepers. But each and every one of those heroes ended their lives lost in the forest, murdered by bandits, or impaled upon the thorns of the rose bushes that encircle the castle. Wake her how? Said the middle-sized dwarf, hand still clutching his rock, he fought in essential. The usual method, said the pot girl, and she blushed, or so the tales have it. Right, said the tallest dwarf. So a bowl of cold water poured in the face and a cry of wakey wakey. A kiss, said the sot, but nobody has ever got that close. They've been trying for 60 years or more. They say the witch... Fairy, said the fat-faced man. Enchantress, corrected the pot girl. Whatever she is, said the sot, she's still there. That's what they say. If you get that close, if you make it through the roses, she'll be waiting for you. She's old as the hills, evil as a snake, all malevolence and magic and death. Dragon, thank you very much for your daily check-in, and thank you very much for the lurk. We're doing a little bit of book reading today, so. The smallest dwarf tipped his head on one side. So there's a sleeping woman in a castle, and perhaps a witch or fairy there with her. Why is there also a plague? Over the last year, said the fat-faced man. It started in the north, beyond the capital. I heard about it first from travellers coming from Steed, which is near the forest of Eclair. People fell asleep in the towns, said the pot girl. Lots of people fall asleep, said the tallest dwarf. Dwarfs sleep rarely, twice a year at most, for several weeks at a time. But he had slept enough in his long lifetime that he did not regard sleep as anything special or unusual. Hey Snowy, welcome on in. Thank you very much for the care package. As you can see, we're doing a little book reading today. I have disabled the sound alerts, just so that we're not interrupted. But don't worry, we will be back. Right, let me have a little drink. And we will adjust our posture. And we'll have a little stretch as well. Lovely. Thank you, Snowy. Thank you for the care package. I appreciate it. And Dean, welcome on in as well. I hope you're having a good day. They fall asleep whatever they are doing, and they do not wake up, said the sot. Look at us. We fled the towns to come here. We have brothers and sisters, wives and children, sleeping now in their house or cowsheds, at their workbenches, all of us. It is moving faster and faster, said the thin, red-haired woman who had not spoken previously. Now it covers a mile, perhaps 2 miles each day. It will be here tomorrow, said the sot, and he drained his flagon, gestured to the innkeeper to fill it once more. There is nowhere for us to go to escape it. Tomorrow, everything here will be asleep, Some of us have resolved to escape into drunkenness before the sleep takes us. What is there to be afraid of in sleep? Said the smallest dwarf. It's just sleep. We all do it. Go and look, said the sot. He threw back his head and drank as much as he could from his flagon. Then he looked down at them, with eyes unfocused, as if he were surprised to still see them there. Well, go on. Go and look for yourselves. He swallowed the remaining drink, then he lay his head upon the table. They went and looked. Thought it was going to be loud and disturb you and everyone would be mad at me and I would be happy. Snowy, yes. Don't worry, Snowy, I'd thought of that in advance. Asleep? Asked the Queen. Explain yourselves. How so asleep? The dwarf stood upon the table so he could look her in the eye. Asleep, he repeated. Sometimes crumpled upon the ground, sometimes standing. They sleep in their smithies, at their owls, or milking stools. The animals sleep in the fields. Birds too slept, and we saw them in trees, or dead and broken in fields where they had fallen from the sky. The Queen wore a wedding gown, whiter than the snow. Around her, attendants, maids of honor, dressmakers and milliners clustered and fussed. And why did you three also not fall asleep? The dwarf shrugged. He had a russet brown beard that had always made the Queen think of an angry hedgehog attached to the lower portion of his face. Dwarves are magical things. This sleep is a magical thing also. I felt sleepy, mind. And then? She was the Queen, and she was questioning him as if they were alone. Her attendants began removing her gown, taking it away, folding and wrapping it so the final laces and ribbons could be attached to it so it would be perfect. Tomorrow was the Queen's wedding day. Everything needed to be perfect. Yes, how are you all doing? Are you all okay? I hope everybody's having a good day so far. Are you at work? It's a good question. It's a good question. Also, I'm stuck on the side of the road. Oh, I hope you're okay, Dean. I was going to say, take care. I was to try and make it home beforehand, but yeah. I was going to say, stay safe, Dean. Fingers crossed it all works out. By the time we returned to Foxton's Inn, they were all asleep. Every man, Jack and Jill of them. It is expanding, the zone of the spell, a few miles every day. The mountains that separated the two lands were impossibly high, but not wide. The Queen could count the miles. She pushed one pale hand through her raven black hair, and she looked most serious. What do you think then? She asked the dwarf. If I went there, would I sleep as they did? He scratched his arse, unself-consciously. You slept for a year, he said, and then you woke again. None the worse for it. If any of you big people can stay awake there, it's you. Outside, the townsfolk were hanging bunting in the streets and decorating their doors and windows with white flowers. Silverware had been polished and protesting children had been forced into tubs of lukewarm water. The oldest child got the first dunk and the hottest water, and scrubbed with rough flannels until their faces were raw and red. They were then ducked under the water and the backs of their ears were washed as well. I'm afraid, said the Queen, that there will be no wedding tomorrow. She called for a map of the kingdom, identified the villages closest to the mountains, sent messengers to tell the inhabitants to evacuate to the coast or risk royal displeasure. She called for her first minister and informed him that he would need to be responsible for the kingdom in her absence, and that he should do his best neither to lose it nor break it. She called for her fiancé and told him not to take on so, and that they would still be married, even if he was but a prince and she a queen, and she chucked him beneath his pretty chin and kissed him until he smiled. She called for her mail shirt, she called for her sword, she called for provisions and for her horse, and then she rode out of the palace towards the east. Got a tow truck on the way, but I don't know if I should go back to work or I was going to say, if the tow truck's on the way, I would just wait, and hopefully it's all okay. Hopefully they're able to take you either back home or take you to the nearest garage, or yeah. It was a full day's ride before she saw, ghostly and distant, like clouds against the sky, the shape of the mountains that bordered the edge of her kingdom. The dwarves were waiting for her at the last inn in the foothills of the mountains, and they led her down deep into the tunnels, the way that the dwarves dwell. She had lived with them when she was little more than a child, and she was not afraid. The dwarves did not speak as they walked the deep pass, except on more than one occasion to say, "Mind your head." "Have you noticed," asked the shortest of the dwarfs, "something unusual?" They had names, the dwarfs, but human beings were not permitted to know what they were, such things being sacred. The Queen had a name, but nowadays people only ever called her Your Majesty. Names are in short supply in this telling. "I have noticed many unusual things," said the tallest of the dwarfs. They were in good Master Foxen's inn. "Have you noticed that even amongst all the sleepers, there is something that does not sleep?" "I have not," said the second tallest, scratching his beard. "Each of them is just as we left him or her, head down, drowsing, scarcely breathing enough to disturb the cobwebs that now festoon them." "The cobweb spinners do not sleep," said the tallest dwarf. It was the truth. Industrious spiders had threaded their webs from finger to face, from beard to table. There was a modest web beneath the deep cleavage of the pot girl's breasts. There was a thick cobweb that stained the sot's beard grey. The web shook and swayed in the draught air of the air from the open door. "I wonder," said one of the dwarfs, "whether they will starve and die, or whether there is some magical source of energy that gives them the ability to sleep for a long time." "I would presume the latter," said the Queen. "If, as you say, the original spell was cast by a witch 70 years ago, and those who were there sleep even now, like Redbeard beneath his hill, then obviously they have not starved or aged or died." The dwarfs nodded. "You are very wise," said a dwarf. "You always were." The Queen made a sound of horror and of surprise. "That man," she said, pointing. "He looked at me." It was the fat-faced man. He had moved slowly, tearing the webbing, moved his face so that he was facing her. He had looked at her, yes, but he had not opened his eyes. "People move in their sleep," said the smallest dwarf. "Yes," said the Queen, "they do. But not like that. That was too slow, too stretched, too meant." "Or perhaps you imagined it," said a dwarf. The rest of the sleeping heads in that place moved slowly, in a stretched way, as if they meant to move. Now each of them was facing the Queen. "You did not imagine it," said the same dwarf. "He was the one with the red-brown beard. But they are only looking at you with their eyes closed. That is not a bad thing." The lips of the sleepers moved in unison. No voice, only the whisper of breath through sleeping lips. "Did they just say what I thought they said?" said the shortest dwarf. "They said, 'Mama, it is my birthday,'" said the Queen, and she shivered. They rode no horses. The horses they passed all slept, standing in fields, and could not be woken. The Queen walked fast. The dwarfs walked twice as fast as she did in order to keep up. The Queen found herself yawning. "Bend over towards me," said the tallest dwarf. She did so. The dwarf slapped her around the face. "Best to stay awake," he said cheerfully. "I only yawned," said the Queen. "How long do you think to the castle?" asked the smallest dwarf. "If I remember my tales and my maps correctly," said the Queen, "the Forest of Akare is about 70 miles from here. 3 days' march." And then she said, "I will need to sleep tonight. I cannot walk for another 3 days." "Sleep then," said the dwarfs. "We will wake you at sunrise." She went to sleep that night in a hayrick, in a meadow, with the dwarfs around her, wondering if she would ever wake to see another morning. Scarface, thank you very much for the follow. I appreciate that. I apologise for not seeing that sooner. I hope you're having a good day. Welcome on in. Thank you for joining us. OMG, it's a story about me, dwarves. Yes, Snowy. Yes, it is. Yes. Explosive, welcome on in. Thank you for your daily check-in. I appreciate you being here. And Sen, thank you very much for your daily check-in as well. I hope you're all doing okay. We are, as you can probably see from the title, we are reading a book called The Sleeper and the Spindle by Neil Gaiman. We quite enjoy Neil Gaiman's books. They're very good. Very good. As I was saying earlier, I discovered Neil Gaiman when I started reading Good Omens. And it's an excellent book, like the TV show. It's what the TV show was actually based on. If you haven't read the book, I really recommend it. It's an excellent book. But thank you for the hydrate. Let me take care of that now, Zen. Lovely. Thank you for that, Zen. I appreciate it. The castle in the Forest of Akare was a grey, blocky thing, all grown over with climbing roses. They tumbled down into the moat and grew almost as high as the tallest tower. Each year the roses grew out further. Close to the stone of the castle, there were only dead, brown stems and creepers with old thorns sharp as knives. 15 feet away, plants were green and the blossoming roses grew thickly. The climbing roses, living and dead, were a brown skeleton, splashed with colour that rendered the grey fastness less precise. The trees in the Forest of Akare were pressed thickly together, and the forest floor was dark. A century before, it had been a forest only in name. It had been hunting lands, a royal park, home to deer and wild boar and birds beyond counting. Now the forest was a dense tangle, and the old paths through it were overgrown and forgotten. The fair-haired girl in the high tower slept. All the people in the castle slept. Each of them was fast asleep, excepting only one. The woman's hair was grey, streaked with white, and no spars her scalp showed. She hobbled angrily through the castle, leaning on her stick, as if she were driven only by hatred, slamming doors, talking to herself as she walked. Up the bloomin' stairs and past the bloomin' cook. And what are you cooking now, eh, great lard ass? Nothing in your pots and pans but dust and more dust, and all you ever do is snore. Into the kitchen garden, neatly tended, the old woman picked rampion and rocket. 80 years before, the palace had held 500 chickens. The pigeon coop had been home to hundreds of fat white doves. Rabbits had run, white-tailed, across the greenery of the castle square inside the castle walls, while fish had swum in the moat and the pond, carp and trout and perch. There remained only 3 chickens. All the sleeping fish had been netted and carried out of the water. There were no more rabbits, no more doves. She had killed her first horse 60 years back and eaten as much of it as she could before the flesh went rainbow-coloured and the carcass began to stink and crawl with blue flies and maggots. Now she only butchered the larger animals in midwinter, when nothing rotted and she could hack and sear frozen chunks of the animal's corpse until the spring thaw. The old woman passed her mother, asleep, with a baby dozing at her breast. She dusted them, absently, as she passed and made certain that the baby's sleepy mouth remained on the nipple. She ate her meal in silence. It was the first great grand city they had come to. The city gates were high and impregnably thick, but they were open wide. The 3 dwarfs were all for going around it, for they were uncomfortable in cities. distrusted houses and streets as unnatural things, but they followed their queen. Once in the city, the sheer numbers of people made them uncomfortable. There were sleeping riders on sleeping horses, sleeping cabmen up on steel carriages that held sleeping passengers, sleeping children clutching their balls and hoops and the whips for their spinning tops, sleeping flower women at their stalls of brown, rotted, dried flowers, even sleeping fishmongers beside their marble slabs. The slabs were covered with the remains of stinking fish, and they were crawling with maggots. The rustle and movement of the maggots was the only movement and noise the queen and the dwarfs encountered. "We should not be here," grumbled the dwarf with the angry brown beard. "This road is more direct than any other road we could follow," said the queen. "Also, it leads to the bridge. The other roads would force us to ford the river." The queen's temper was equable. She went to sleep at night, and she woke in the morning, and the sleeping sickness had not touched her. The maggots' rustlings, and from time to time the gentle snores and shifts of the sleepers were all that they heard as they made their way through the city. And then a small child, asleep on a step, said loudly and clearly, "Are you spinning? Can I see?" "Did you hear that?" asked the queen. The tallest dwarf said only, "Look! Sleepers are waking." He was wrong. They were not in waking. The sleepers were standing, however. They were pushing themselves slowly to their feet and taking hesitant, awkward, sleeping steps. They were sleepwalkers, trailing gauze cobwebs behind them. Always there were cobwebs being spun. "How many people, human people I mean, live in a city?" said the smallest dwarf. "It varies," said the queen. "In our kingdom, no more than 20, perhaps 30,000 people. This seems bigger than our cities. I would think 50,000 people or more. Why?" "Because," said the dwarf, "they appear to all be coming after us." Sleeping people are not fast. They stumble, they stagger, they move like children wading through with rivers of treacle, like old people whose feet are weighed down by thick, wet mud. The sleepers moved towards the dwarves and the queen. They were easy for the dwarves to outrun, easy for the queen to outwalk, and yet there were so many of them. Each street they came to was filled with sleepers, cobweb shrouded, eyes tight closed or eyes open and rolled back in their heads, showing only the whites, all of them shuffling sleepily forwards. Thank you for doing the promo, Reno. I appreciate that. The queen turned and ran down an alleyway, and the dwarfs ran with her. "This is not honourable," said a dwarf. "We should stay and fight." "There is no honour," gasped the queen, "in fighting an opponent who has no idea that you are even there. No honour in fighting someone who is dreaming of fishing or of gardens or of long-dead lovers." "What would they do if they caught us?" asked the dwarfs beside her. "Do you wish to find out?" asked the queen. "No," admitted the dwarf. They ran, and they did not stop from running until they had left the city by the far gates and had crossed the bridge that spanned the river. The old woman had not climbed the tallest tower in a dozen years. It was a laborious climb, and each step took its toll on her knees and on her hips. She walked up the curving stone stairwell, each small, shuffling step she took in agony. There were no railings there, nothing to make the steep steps easier. She leaned on her stick, sometimes, and then she kept climbing. She used the stick on the webs too. Thick cobwebs hung and covered the stairs, and the old woman shook her stick at them, pulling the webs apart, leaving spiders scurrying for the walls. The climb was long and arduous, but eventually she reached the tower room. There was nothing in the room but a spindle and a stool, beside one slitted window and a bed in the centre of the round room. The bed was opulent. Crimson and gold cloth was visible beneath the dusty netting that covered it, and protecting its sleeping occupant from the world. The spindle sat on the ground beside the stool, where it had fallen 70 years before. The old woman pushed at the netting with her stick, and dust filled the air. She stared at the sleeper on the bed. The girl's hair was the golden yellow of meadow flowers. Her lips were the pink of roses that climbed the palace walls. She had not seen daylight in a long time, but her skin was creamy, neither pallid nor unhealthy. Her chest rose and fell, almost imperceptibly in the semi-darkness. The old woman reached down and picked up the spindle. She said aloud, "If I drove this spindle through your heart, then you'd not be so pretty, would you? Eh? Would you?" She walked towards the sleeping girl in the dusty white dress. Then she lowered her hand. "No, I cannot. I wish to all the gods I could." All of her senses were fading with age, but she thought she heard voices from the forest. Long ago she had seen them come, the princes and the heroes, watched them perish, impaled upon the thorns of the roses, but it had been a long time since anyone, hero or otherwise, had reached as far as the castle. "Eh?" she said aloud, as she said so much aloud, but who was to hear her? "Even if they come, they'll die screaming on the thorns. There's nothing they can do, that anyone can do. Nothing at all." A woodcutter, asleep by the bole of a tree, half felled half a century before, and now grown into an arch, opened his mouth as the queen and the dwarves passed and said, "My, what an unusual naming day present that must have been." Hey Scrumpy, how's it going? Welcome on in. Hope you're having a good day. Thank you for joining us. As you can see from the title, we are reading a book called The Sleeper and the Spindle by Neil Gaiman. Hope you're having a good day, and thank you for joining us. 3 bandits asleep in the middle of what remained of the trail, their limbs crooked as if they had fallen asleep while hiding in a tree above and had tumbled without waking to the ground below, said in unison without waking, "Will you bring me roses?" One of them, a huge man, fat as a bear, in autumn, seized the queen's ankle as she came close to him. The smallest dwarf did not even hesitate. He lopped the hand off with his hand axe, and the queen pulled the man's fingers away one by one until the hand fell on the leaf mound. "Bring me roses," said the 3 bandits as they slept with one voice, while the blood oozed indolently onto the ground from the stump of the fat man's arm. "I would be so happy if only you would bring me roses." Thank you very much for the follow, Scrumpy. I appreciate it. And thank you for coming in. Yeah, thank you, Reen. Thank you for taking care of this. Hey, Need. He's actually doing it. Yes. As was requested. We're doing something a little different today. We're trying it. So yes, come on in, relax, enjoy yourself. They felt the castle long before they saw it, felt it as a wave of sleep that pushed them away. If they walked towards it, their heads fogged, their minds frayed, their spirits fell, their thoughts clouded. The moment they turned away, they woke up into the world, felt brighter, saner, wiser. The queen and the dwarfs pushed deeper into the mental fog. Sometimes a dwarf would yawn and stumble. Each time the other dwarfs would take him by the arms and march him forwards, struggling and muttering until his mind returned. Oh, little book guy. Don't worry, it's still there. It's still there. It's under the blanket, so I can stay nice and comfy. Thank you, Reen, for the get comfy. Doing well. Hope you're doing well too, Scrumpy. Welcome on in, Bob. Welcome on in. Appreciate you being here as well. Thank you again. Yes, I do appreciate the follows. Thank you very much, guys. We hit our 200 follower goal today. That's so cool. If you'd asked me 6 months ago if we'd get here, I would not have believed it myself. So I'm very grateful to all of you who have come in and followed. Thank you very much for joining us. The queen stayed awake, although the forest was filled with people she knew could not be there. They walked beside her on the path, Sometimes they spoke to her. Let us now discuss how diplomacy is affected by matters of natural philosophy, said her father. My sisters ruled the world, said her stepmother, dragging her iron shoes along the forest path. They glowed a dull orange, yet none of the dry leaves burned where the shoes touched them. The mortal folk rose up against us. They cast us down, and so we waited in crevices, in places they do not see us. And now they adore me. Even you, my stepdaughter, even you adore me. You are so beautiful, said her mother, who had died so very long ago, like a crimson rose in the fallen snow. Sometimes wolves ran beside them, pounding dust and leaves up from the forest floor, although the passage of the wolves did not disturb the huge cobwebs that hung like veils across the paths. Also, sometimes the wolves ran through the trunks of trees and off into the darkness. The queen liked the wolves, and was sad when one of the dwarves began shouting, saying that the spiders were bigger than pigs, and the wolves vanished from her head and from the world. It was not so. They were only spiders of a regular size, used to spinning their webs undisturbed by time and by travellers. Reen, thank you very much for the gifted sub. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Very sweet of you. Very sweet of you, Reen. Thank you, thank you again, Need. I appreciate that. Nothing like munching on seaweed snacks while listening to the Fox story time. Well, I was going to say, guys, please make yourself comfy, enjoy yourselves, just relax, put your feet up, and yeah, I'm quite enjoying the story so far. The drawbridge across the moat was down, and they crossed it, although everything seemed to be pushing them away. They could not enter the castle, however. Thick thorns filled the gateway, and fresh growth was covered with roses. The queen saw the remains of men in the thorns, skeletons in armour and skeletons unarmoured. Some of the skeletons were high on the sides of the castle, and the queen wondered if they had climbed up, seeking an entry, and died there, or if they had died on the ground and been carried upwards as the roses grew. She came to no conclusions. Either way was possible. I'm still very grateful. Still very grateful, Reen. I appreciate it. And then her world was warm and comfortable, and she became certain that closing her eyes for only a handful of moments would not be harmful. Who would mind? Help me, croaked the queen. The dwarf with the brown beard pulled a thorn from the rose bush near to him and jabbed it hard into the queen's thumb and pulled it out again. A drop of deep blood dripped onto the flagstones of the gateway. Ow, said the queen, and then, thank you. If I ever make it big by writing stories, remind me to make you an offer to be the audiobook actor. That's very sweet of you, Zen. Thank you, I appreciate that. That's very sweet of you to say. They stared at the thick barrier of thorns, dwarves and the queen. So she reached out and picked a rose from the thorn creeper nearest her and bound it into her hair. We could tunnel our way in, said the dwarfs. Go under the moat and into the foundations and up. Only take us a couple of days. The queen pondered. Her thumb hurt, and she was pleased her thumb hurt. She said, "This began here 80 or so years ago. It began slowly. It only spread recently. It is spreading faster and faster. We do not know if the sleepers can ever wake. We do not know anything, save that we may not actually have another 2 days." She eyed the dense tangle of thorns, living and dead, decades of dried, dead plants, their thorns as sharp in death as ever they were when alive. She walked along the wall until she reached a skeleton, and she pulled the rotted cloth from its shoulders and felt it as she did so. It was dry. Yes, it would make good kindling. "Who has the tinderbox?" she asked. The old thorns burned so hot and so fast. In 15 minutes, orange flames snaked upwards. They seemed for a moment to engulf the building, and then they were gone, leaving just blackened stone. The remaining thorns, those stronger enough to have withstood the heat, were easily cut through by the Queen's sword, and were hauled away and tossed into the moat. The 4 travellers went into the castle. The old woman peered out of the slitted window at the flames below her. Smoke drifted in through the windows, but neither the flames nor the roses reached the highest tower. Thank you very much for the daily check-in, Need. I appreciate that. Why do I have gold and what do I do with it? You can use that for redeems on the channel. Some of them will affect my model. Some of them will ask me to do bits and pieces. So, yes, you're welcome to use the gold for whatever you wish. She knew that the castle was being attacked, and she would have hidden in the tower room had there been anywhere to hide, had the sleeper not been on the bed. She swore and began laboriously to walk down the steps one at a time. She intended to make it down as far as the castle's battlements, from where she could reach the far side of the building, the cellars. She could hide there. She knew the building better than anybody. She was slow, but she was cunning, and she could wait. Oh, she could wait. She heard their calls rising up the stairwell. This way! Up here! It feels worse this way. Come on, quickly! She turned around, then did her best to hurry upwards, but her legs moved no faster than they had when she was climbing earlier that day. They caught her just as she reached the top of the steps. 3 men, no higher than her hips, closely followed by a young woman in travel-stained clothes, with the blackest hair the old woman had ever seen. Oh my god. Oh, for the love... Okay, fine. Ooh. You get one, and that was it. Some of them are highly expensive and only available once per stream. Yes, like that one. You get one of those per stream, at best. God. Well, you'd better save those points, Emmy. You better save those points then, hadn't you? I was going to say. Oh dear. Anyway. The young woman said, "Seize her," in a tone of casual command. The little men took her stick. "She's stronger than she looks," said one of them, his head still ringing from the blow she had got in with the stick before he had taken it. They walked her back into the round tower room. "The fire?" said the old woman, who had not talked to anyone who could answer for her for 6 decades. "Was anyone killed in the fire? Did you see the king or the queen?" The young woman shrugged. "I don't think so. The sleepers we passed were all inside, and the walls are thick. Who are you?" "Names. Names." The old woman squinted, then she shook her head. She was herself, and the name she had been born with had been eaten by time and lack of use. "Where is the princess?" The old woman just stared at her. "And why are you awake?" She said nothing. They spoke urgently to one another, the little men and the queen. "Is she a witch? There's a magic about her, but I do not think it's of her making." "Guard her," said the queen. "If she is a witch, that stick might be important. Keep it from her." "It's my stick," said the old woman. "I think it was my father's, but he had no more use for it." Queen ignored her. She walked to the bed, pulled down the silk netting. The sleeper's face stared blindly up at them. "This is where it began," said one of the little men. "On her birthday," said another. "Well," said the third, "somebody's got to do the honours." "I shall," said the queen gently. She lowered her face to the sleeping woman's. She touched the pink lips to her own carmine lips, and she kissed the sleeping girl long and hard. "I'm 1/10 of the way to VIP, let's go." Good job, Zen. Keep it going. Keep it going. You're doing great. Did it work? Asked the dwarf. I do not know, said the queen, but I feel for her. Poor thing, sleeping her life away. Thank you very much for the head pads. We love the head pads. Thank you, Need. Thank you for that. So nice. Very relaxing. Oh, no, not the bongos. Oh, my poor noggin. Zen. Need to be saving Zen. What are you doing? Honestly. You slept for a year in the same witch sleep, said the dwarf. You did not starve. You did not rot. The figure on the bed stirred, as if she were having a bad dream from which she was fighting to wake herself. The queen ignored her. She had noticed something on the floor beside the bed. She reached down and picked it up. Now this, she said, this smells of magic. There's magic all through this, said the smallest dwarf. No, this, said the queen. She showed him the wooden spindle, the base half wound around the yarn. This smells of magic. It was here, in this room, said the old woman suddenly. And I was little more than a girl. I had never gone on so far before, but I climbed all the steps, and I went up and round until I came to the topmost room. I saw that bed, the one you see, although there was nobody in it. There was only an old woman, sitting on the stool, spinning wool into yarn with her spindle. I had never seen a spindle before. She asked if I would like a go. She took the wool in her hand and gave me the spindle to hold. She held my thumb and pressed it against the point of the spindle until blood flowed, and she touched the bloods of the thread, and then she said... Another voice interrupted her. A young voice it was, a girl's voice, but still sleep thickened. I said, now I take your sleep from you, girl, just as I take you your ability to harm me in my sleep. For someone needs to be awake while I sleep. Your family, your friends, your world will sleep too. And then I lay down on the bed, and I slept. And they slept. And as each of them slept, I stole a little of their life, a little of their dreams. And as I slept, I took back my youth, and my beauty, and my power. I slept, and I grew strong. I undid the ravages of time, and I built myself a world of sleeping slaves. She was sitting up in the bed. She looked so beautiful, and so very young. The queen looked at the girl, and saw what she was searching for. The same look that she had seen in her stepmother's eyes, and she knew what manner of creature this girl was. We had been led to believe, said the tallest dwarf, that when you woke, the rest of the world would wake with you. Why ever would you think that? Asked the golden-haired girl, all childlike and innocent. Ah, but her eyes were so old. I like them asleep. They are more biddable. She stopped for a moment, then she grinned. Even now they come for you. I have called them here. It's a high tower, said the queen, and sleeping people do not move fast. We still have a little time to talk, your darkness. Thank you for the hydrate, Reen. I will take care of that now. Lovely. Thank you for that, Reen. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Who are you? Why would we talk? Why do you know to address me that way? The girl climbed off the bed and stretched deliciously, pushing each fingertip out before running her fingertips through her golden hair. She smiled, and it was as if the sun shone into that dim room. The little people will stop where they are now. I do not like them, and you, girl, you will sleep too. No, said the queen. She hefted the spindle. The yarn wrapped around it was black with age and with time. The dwarves stopped where they stood, and they swayed and closed their eyes. The queen said, It's always the same with your kind. You need youth and you need beauty. You used your own up so long ago, and now you find ever more complex ways of obtaining them, and you always want power. They were almost nose to nose now, and the fair-haired girl seemed so much younger than the queen. "Why don't you just go to sleep?" asked the girl, and she smiled, guilelessly, just as the queen's stepmother had smiled when she wanted something. There was a noise on the stairs far below them. "I slept for a year in a glass coffin," said the queen, "and the woman who put me there was much more powerful and dangerous than you will ever be." "More powerful than I am?" The girl seemed amused. "I have 1,000,000 sleepers under my control. With every moment that I slept, I grew in power, and the circle of dreams grows faster and faster with every passing day. I have my youth, so much youth. I have my beauty. No weapon can harm me. Nobody alive is more powerful than I am." She stopped and stared at the queen. "You are not of our blood," she said, "but you have some of their skill." She smiled, the smile of an innocent girl who was woken on a spring morning. "Ruling the world will not be easy, nor will maintaining order among those of the sisterhood who have survived into this degenerate age. I will need someone to be my eyes and ears, to administer justice, to attend to things when I am otherwise engaged. I will stay at the center of the web. You will not rule with me, but beneath me. But you will still rule, and rule continents, not just a tiny kingdom." She reached out a hand and stroked the queen's pale skin, which in the dim light of that room seemed almost as white as snow. "Fox being too nice? Why? What do you mean? What do you mean, Reen? Why do you feel I'm being too nice?" "I'm always nice to you, Reen. What do you mean?" The queen said nothing. "Love me," said the girl. "All will love me, and you, who woke me, you must love me most of all." The queen felt something stirring in her heart. She remembered her stepmother then. Her stepmother had liked to be adored, learning how to be strong, to feel her own emotions and not another's. It had been hard, but once you learned the trick of it, you did not forget, and she did not wish to rule continents. The girl smiled at her with eyes the color of the morning sky. The queen did not smile. She reached out her hand. "Here," she said. "This is not mine." She passed the spindle to the old woman beside her. The old woman hefted it thoughtfully. She began to unwrap the yarn from the spindle with arthritic fingers. "This was my life," she said. "This thread was my life." "It was your life. You gave it to me," said the sleeper irritably. "It has gone on much too long." The tip of the spindle was still sharp after so many decades. The old woman, who had been a princess, held the yarn tightly in her hand, and she thrust the point of the spindle into the golden-haired girl's breast. The girl watched as a trickle of red blood ran down her breast and stained her white dress crimson. "No weapon can harm me," she said, and her girlish voice was petulant. "Not anymore. Look, it's only a scratch." "It's not a weapon," said the queen. "It's your own magic, and a scratch is all that was needed." The girl's blood soaked into the thread that had once been wrapped around the spindle, the thread that ran from the spindle to the raw wool in the old woman's hand. The girl looked down at the blood staining her dress and at the blood on the thread, and she said only, "It was just a prick of the skin, nothing more." She seemed confused. The noise on the stairs was getting louder, a slow, irregular shuffling, as if 100 sleepwalkers were coming up a stone spiral staircase with their eyes closed. The room was small, there was nowhere to hide, and the room's windows were 2 narrow slits in the stones. The old woman, who had not slept in so many decades, said, You took my dreams. You took my sleep. Now that's enough of all that. She was a very old woman. Her fingers were gnarled like the roots of a hawthorn brush. Her nose was long and her eyelids drooped, but there was a look in her eyes, in that moment. That was the look of someone young. She swayed, and then she staggered, and she would have fallen to the floor if the Queen had not caught her first. The Queen carried the old woman to the bed, marvelling at how little she weighed, and placed her on the crimson counterpane. The old woman's chest rose and fell. The noise on the stairs was louder now. Then a silence, followed suddenly by a hubbub, as if 100 people were talking at once, surprised and angry and confused. The beautiful girl said, "But..." And now there was nothing girlish or beautiful about her. Her face fell and became less shapely. She reached down to the smallest dwarf, pulled his hand axe from his belt. She fumbled with his axe, held it up threateningly, with hands all wrinkled and worn. The Queen drew her sword. The blade's edge was notched and damaged from the thorns. But instead of striking, she took a step backwards. "Listen, they are waking up," she said. "They are all waking up. Tell me again about the youth you stole from them. Tell me again about your beauty and your power. Tell me again how clever you were, your darkness." When the people reached the tower room, they saw an old woman asleep on a bed, and they saw the Queen standing tall, and beside her, the dwarfs who were shaking their heads, scratching them. They saw something else on the floor also, a tumble of bones, a hank of hair as fine and as white as fresh spun cobwebs, a tracery of grey rags across it, and over all of it, an oily dust. "Take care of her," said the Queen, pointing with the dark wooden spindle at the old woman on the bed. "She saved your lives." She left then with the dwarfs. None of the people in that room or on the steps dared to stop then, or would have ever understand what had happened. A mile or so from the castle, in a clearing in the forest of Acair, the Queen and the dwarfs lit a fire of dry twigs, and in it they burned the thread and the fibre. The smallest dwarf chopped the spindle into fragments of black wood with his axe, and they burned them too. The wood chips gave off a noxious smoke as they burned, which made the Queen cough, and the smell of old magic was heavy in the air. Afterwards, they buried the charred wooden fragments beneath a rowan tree. By evening, they were on the outskirts of the forest and had reached a cleared track. They could see a village across the hill and smoke rising from the village chimneys. "So," said the dwarf with the brown beard, "if we head due west, we can be at the mountains by the end of the week, and we'll have you back in your palace in Cancellaire within 10 days. "Yes," said the Queen. "And your wedding will be late, but it will happen soon after your return, and the people will celebrate, and there will be joy unbounded through the kingdom." "Yes," said the Queen. She said nothing, but sat on the moss beneath an oak tree and tasted the stillness heartbeat by heartbeat. There are choices, she thought, when she had sat long enough. There are always choices. And so she made one. The Queen began to walk, and the dwarves followed her. "You do know we're heading east, don't you?" said one of the dwarfs. "Oh yes," said the Queen. "Well, that's all right then," said the dwarf. They walked to the east, all four of them, away from the sunset and the lands they knew, and into the night. And that's the end of the book. It's quite good, actually. I've had that book for a while, but I've never had a chance to read it. Thank you, Zen. Thank you for the applause. Thank you, Reen. Thank you for that. It was a tiny book. Yes, it's only a short story. It's a short story, but it's but again, it was by Neil Gaiman. I would love to show you guys the artwork that's included with it. It's an excellent book. I'll put a link to it on in the Discord later or something, and you guys can have a look if you want. But yes. Would GB, good book, very good, Reen, very good. Also, Glass Coffin, that made me fly up from half sleep. Yes, well, it's quite it's a fun combination, obviously, of Snow White and what's his name? Sleeping Beauty. So yes. Briar Rose, yes. Yes, it's very well done. Again, I've always enjoyed Neil Gaiman's books. I have read it before, but we might actually go back and read Good Omens on stream. That might be one that's fun to read. It's an excellent book. I recommend that you guys read it yourselves. But it's very enjoyable. It's very enjoyable. How are we doing for time? Okay, we're about an hour and 15 minutes in. That's not too bad. Monthly Fox story time. I think we could do a Fox story time every now and then. Yeah. I'll be sure to try and include it into the schedule. But yes, I think Good Omens might be one to read next, perhaps. In fact, I might. I'll tell you what we might do. We might take a quick break. I might go and pop to my bookshelf and go and grab my copy of Good Omens, and we might make a start on that. Could be fun. Again, I said I have already read it once. Well, I say once. I've read it a few times actually. It's a very enjoyable book. Very amusing. But it's actually, if you didn't know, Good Omens is actually a book read by both a book written by both Neil Gaiman and by Terry Pratchett. So if you're a fan of Terry Pratchett's books, you will see some of his writing style in it. It's a very good book. I should probably try and maybe some Terry Pratchett could be good to read as well. I do quite like his books. I'm gonna have a quick drink. Hang on. Lovely. But yes, I think what we might do is I think we might take a quick 2-3 minute break. I might just put something to the BRB screen. I'll go and grab the Good Omens book, and actually I'll tell you what, I could do the ad break, because we're not going to go too late tonight. I could do an ad break so that then when we come back we have no ads for the rest of stream. I can get the book, and yeah, I think that would be a good idea. Reen, thank you very much for the ads. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. We will get those loaded up. But yeah, I appreciate you guys listening to that story. Again, it's it's simultaneously a short story, but it's also a bit of a visual novel, because there's some great artwork in there that's been done alongside it. And again, I'd recommend having a look at the artwork that goes with it, because it's some very dramatic imagery with it. So, but yes, I'll go and I'll put us onto the BRB screen. We'll take a quick ad break. I'll change the title to be the new book, and we will make a start on that. So bear with me. I should be back in about 2 or 3 minutes.
This is fine. This is fine.
If you do not appreciate it, we can move on. I will not dwell on a rejected gift.
Oh wait, is that Twitch? Oh my god. So Twitch staff, sorry guys. Ignore the eye stabbing. That's completely accidental. Whoopsie guys. I feel like it's tough to ignore C stuff. Yeah. Yeah. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Wait, was I followed? Oh, Nico. I didn't realize you were a staff member. Please don't blame me for stabbing myself. It's so bad. Welcome in. Yes, appreciate you being here.
Here. Get out of here. No,
come
you're not getting anything from me
come
tonight.
here,
No.
Reen, come
No, you
here,
cannot.
come here,
You cannot butter me up. No,
Come
no.
Come here.
No, you got me backed up in the corner. Oh no, Chad. Help me. Help me, he's got me backed up in the corner.
hang on.
Oh no, this is so tragic. This is so tragic.
Oh yeah, you seem really broken
What
up.
am I
about this.
gonna
Hang
do?
on. I could do the anime trope, be like the.
Oh.
Oh hey. You good?
Wow, spicy.
Wow.
Look, Chad's feeling uncomfortable.
You did this. You started this.
Okay, it's fine. It's fine. Let me try doing the. Let me try and do. Hang on. Give me 2 seconds. Wait. Hey guys, wait, where have I got loading? No, you just ruined my intro. God damn it.
How? Why? I have so many questions!
I did
Did you
not.
see that, chat? Hey.
Now I lifted you up.
Back.
Don't you? What are you doing? What are you doing? Stop it!
They're going.
No.
They're
No.
going.
Let me kidnap you. Let me kidnap
No
you.
head pass for you then. No.
What?
No head pass for you.
Harsh. Uncalled for.
You have been a worthy adversary, but unfortunately I'm a spoon.
Oh, I'm a spoon. I read the second word with the first word. Not spoon. We're not spooning. No.
I must soon put you to death.
In a way.
No, you're not.
Should
You're fine. No, you're fine.
Are you sure?
Yes,
taking
I'm
the
sure.
whole
No, you're not. You're fine. Shut up.
Don't tell me to shut up.
Because you're doubting yourself, and if you doubt yourself, I'm going to tell you to shut up.
Why,
Okay.
why did I think you said daddy?
Wait, what? Who said daddy? Oh, I said doubting yourself. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm your sugar daddy or anything, but
Shut your mouth. You are not.
If Olympus, if your
do you blip?
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you for bearing with me. I appreciate we had a little early ad break there, but yes, we now have no ads for the rest of the stream. I have got the next book. Welcome back. Thank you, Reen. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Yes, I have got the next book. As I said, we're going to be reading Good Omens with Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. And he forgot the library background. I haven't got the library background yet, Emmy. I need to go and buy one. I'll go and get it sorted for the next stream. Don't worry. Bear with you. Is that code for you being held hostage by a bear? No. Ignore any growling you can hear. That's completely unrelated. But yes, so we start with Good Omens, and we start, as with all things, in the beginning. It was a nice day. All the days had been nice. There had been rather more than 7 of them so far, and rain hadn't been invented yet, but clouds massing east of Eden suggested that the first thunderstorm was on its way, and it was going to be a big one. The Angel of the Eastern Gate put his wings over his head to shield himself from the first drops. "I'm sorry," he said politely. "What was it you were saying?" "I said, that one went down like a lead balloon," said the serpent. "Oh, yes," said the angel, whose name was Aziraphale. "I think it was a bit of an overreaction, to be honest," said the serpent. "I mean, first offense and everything. I can't see what's so bad about knowing the difference between good and evil anyway." "It must be bad," reasoned Aziraphale, in the slightly concerned tones of one who can't see it either, and is worrying about it. Otherwise you wouldn't have been involved. Reen, are you trying to Reen, you're not a bear, you're an onion. Shush. Oh, unless you mean the growling. Then if it's growling, it's probably rain. "They just said, get up there and make some trouble," said the serpent, whose name was Crawley. although he was thinking of changing it now. Crawley, he decided, was not him. Yes, but you're a demon. I'm not sure if it's actually possible for you to do good, said Aziraphale. It's down to your basic, nature. Nothing personal, you understand. You've got to admit, it's a bit of a pantomime, said Crawley. I mean, pointing out the tree and saying, "Don't touch" in big letters? Not very subtle, is it? I mean, why not put it on top of a high mountain or a long way off? Makes you wonder what he's really planning. Best not to speculate, really, said Aziraphale. You can't second-guess ineffability, I always say. There's right and there's wrong. If you do wrong, then you're told to do right. You deserve to be punished. They sat in embarrassed silence, watching the raindrops bruise the first flowers. Eventually, Crawley said, "Didn't you have a flaming sword?" Said the angel. A guilty expression passed across his face, and then came back and camped there. "You did, didn't you?" said Crawley. "It flamed like anything." Well, it looked very impressive, I thought." "Yes, but, well, lost it, have you?" "Oh, no. No, not exactly lost. More... Well?" Aziraphale looked wretched. "If you must know," he said, a trifle testily, "I gave it away." Crawley stared up at him. "Well, I had to," said the angel, rubbing his hands distractedly. "They look so cold, the poor things, and she is expecting already. And what with the vicious animals out there and the storm coming up, I thought, well, where's the harm? So I just said, look, if you come back, there's going to be an almighty row, but you might be needing this sword, so here it is. Don't bother to thank me, just do everyone a big favour, and don't let the sun go down on you here." He gave Crawley a worried grin. "That was the best course, wasn't it?" "I'm not sure it's actually possible for you to do evil," said Crawley sarcastically. Aziraphale didn't notice the tone. "Oh, I do hope so," he said. "I really do hope so. It's been worrying me all afternoon." "Reen, thank you very much for the lurk. I appreciate it." "I'll be lurking. Milo's got up. I need to feed him." "Yeah, do whatever you need to do, Reen. Take care of Milo." "Appreciate you being here." They watched the rain for a while. "Funny thing is," said Crawley, "I keep wondering whether the apple thing wasn't the right thing to do as well. A demon can get into real trouble doing the right thing," he nudged the angel. "Funny if we both got it wrong, eh? Funny if I did the good thing and you did the bad one, eh?" "Not really," said Aziraphale. Crawley looked at the rain. "No," he said, sobering up. "I suppose not." Slate black curtains tumbled over Eden. Thunder growled among the hills. The animals, freshly named, cowered from the storm. Far away in the dripping woods, something bright and fiery flicked among the trees. It was going to be a dark and stormy night. "11 years ago. Current theories on the creation of the universe state that, if it were created at all and didn't just start, as it were, unofficially, it came into being between 10 and 20,000 million years ago. By the same token, the Earth itself is generally supposed to be about 4,500 million years old. These dates are incorrect. Medieval Jewish scholars put the date of the creation at 3760 BC. Greek Orthodox theologians put creation as far back as 5508 BC. These suggestions are also incorrect. Archbishop James Ussher published Amalis Veres et Nuevi Testamente in 1654, which suggested that the heaven and the earth were created in 4004 BC. One of his aides took the calculation further and was able to announce triumphantly that the Earth was created on Sunday, the 21st of October, 4004 BC at exactly 9 AM, because God liked to get work done early in the morning while he was feeling fresh. This too was incorrect, by almost a quarter of an hour. The whole business with the fossilized dinosaur skeletons was a joke the paleontologists haven't seen yet. Yummy peppermint dark chocolate. That sounds delicious then. I was going to say, enjoy it, make the most of it. This proves two things. Firstly, that God moves in extremely mysterious, not to say circuitous ways. God does not play dice with the universe. He plays an ineffable game of his own devising, which might be compared from the perspective of any of the other players, i.e. everybody, to being involved in an obscure and complex version of poker in a pitch-dark room with blank cards, the infinite stakes, with a dealer who won't tell you the rules and who smiles all the time. Secondly, the Earth's a Libra. The astrological prediction for Libra in the Your Stars Today column of the Tabfield Advertiser on the day this history begins read as follows. Libra, 24th of September to the 23rd of October. You may be feeling run down and always in the same old daily round. Home and family matters are highlighted and are hanging fire. Avoid unnecessary risks. A friend is important to you. Shelve major decisions until the way ahead seems clear. You may be vulnerable to a stomach upset today, so avoid salads. Help could come from an unexpected quarter. This was perfectly correct on every count, except for the bit about the salads. It wasn't a dark and stormy night. It should have been, but that's the weather for you. For every mad scientist who's had a convenient thunderstorm just the night his great work is finished and lying on the slab, there have been dozens who've sat around aimlessly under the peaceful stars while Igor clocks up the overtime. But don't let the fog, with rain later, temperatures dropping to around 45 degrees, give anyone a false sense of security. Just because it's a mild night doesn't mean that the dark forces aren't abroad. They're abroad all the time. They're everywhere. They always are. That's the whole point. Two of them lurked in the ruined graveyard. Two shadowy figures, one hunched and squat, the other lean and menacing. Both of them Olympic-grade lurkers. If Bruce Springsteen had ever recorded Born to Lurk, these two would have been on the album cover. They had been lurking in the fog for an hour now, but they had been pacing themselves and could lurk for the rest of the night if necessary, with still enough sullen menace left for a final burst of lurking around dawn. Finally, after another 20 minutes, one of them said, "Bugger this for a lark. Should have been here hours ago." The speaker's name was Hastur. He was a Duke of Hell. Many phenomena, wars, plagues, sudden audits, have been advanced as evidence for the hidden hand of Satan in the affairs of man. But whenever students of demonology get together, the M25 London Orbital Motorway is generally agreed to be among the top contenders for Exhibit A. Where they go wrong, of course, is assuming that this wretched road is evil simply because of the incredible carnage and frustration it engenders every day. In fact, very few people on the face of the planet know that the very shape of the M25 forms the sigil Odegra, in the language of the black priesthood of ancient Mu, and means "Hail the great beast, devourer of worlds." The thousands of motorists who daily fume their way around its serpentine lengths have the same effect as water on a prayer wheel, grinding out an endless fog of low-grade evil to pollute the metaphysical atmosphere for scores of miles around. It was one of Crowley's better achievements. It had taken years to achieve, and had involved 3 computer hacks, 2 break-ins, 1 minor bribery, and on one wet night when all else had failed, 2 hours in a squelchy field, shifting the marker pegs a few but occultly incredibly significant meters. When Crowley had watched the first 30-mile-long tailback, he'd experienced the lovely warm feeling of a bad job well done. It had earned him accommodation. Crowley was currently doing 110 miles an hour somewhere east of Slough. Nothing about him looked particularly demonic, at least by classical standards. No horns, no wings. Admittedly, he was listening to a Best of Queen tape, but no conclusions about should be drawn from this, because all tapes left in a car for more than about a fortnight metamorphosized into Best of Queen albums. No particularly demonic thoughts were going through his head. In fact, he was currently wondering vaguely who Moe and Shandon were. Crawley had dark hair and good cheekbones, and he was wearing snakeskin shoes, or at least presumably he was wearing shoes. And he could do really weird things with his tongue, and whenever he forgot himself, he had a tendency to hiss. He also didn't blink much. The car he was driving was a 1926 black Bentley, one owner from new, and that owner had been Crowley. He'd looked after it. The reason he was late was that he was enjoying the 20th century immensely. It was much better than the 17th, and a lot better than the 14th. One of the nice things about time, Crowley always said, was that it was steadily taking him further away from the 14th century. The most bloody, boring 100 years on God's, excuse his French, earth. The 20th century was anything but boring. In fact, a flashing blue light in his rearview mirror had been telling Crowley for the last 50 seconds that he was being followed by two men who would like to make it even more interesting for him. He glanced at his watch, which was designed for the kind of rich deep-sea diver who likes to know what the time is in 21 world capitals while he's down there. It was custom-made for Crowley. Getting just one chip custom-made is incredibly expensive, but he could afford it. This watch gave the time in 20 world capitals, and in a capital city in another place, where it was always one time, and that was too late. Yes, Emmy, as I said, this book is definitely worth a read. It's excellent, very, very funny. Don't get me wrong, the show is good, but the book just... the book is excellent. The Bentley thundered up the exit ramp, took the corner on two wheels, and plunged down a leafy road. The blue light followed. Crowley sighed, took one hand from the wheel, and half-turning made a complicated gesture over his shoulder. The flashing light dimmed into the distance as the police car rolled to a halt, much to the amazement of its occupants. But it would be nothing to the amazement they'd experienced when they opened the bonnet and found out what the engine had turned into. The God's Green Earth comment, my fucking god. Yes, it's very good, it's very good. In the graveyard, Hasta, the tall demon, passed the dog end back to Ligger, the shorter one and more accomplished lurker. "I can see a light," he said. "Here he comes now, the flash bastard." "What's that he's driving?" said Ligger. "It's a car. A horseless carriage," explained Hasta. "I expected they didn't have them last time you was here. Not for what you might call general use." "They had a man at the front with a red flag," said Ligger. "They've come on a bit since then, I reckon." "What's this Crowley like?" said Ligger. Hasta spat. "He's been up here too long," he said. "Right from the start. Gone native if you ask me. Drives a car with a telephone in it." Ligger pondered this. Like most demons, he had a very limited grasp of technology, and so he was just about to say something like, "I bet it needs a lot of wire," when the Bentley rolled to a halt at the cemetery gate. "And he wears sunglasses," sneered Hasta, "even when he don't need to." He raised his voice. "All hail Satan," he said. "All hail Satan," Ligger echoed. "Hi," said Crowley, giving them a little wave. "Sorry I'm late, but you know how it is on the A40 at Denham, and when I tried to cut up towards Chorley Wood, and then—" "Now we art all here," said Hasta meaningfully, "we must recount the deeds of the day." "Yeah, deeds," said Crowley, with the slightly guilty look of one who is attending church for the first time in years and has forgotten which bits you stand up for. Hasta cleared his throat. "I have tempted a priest," he said. "As he walked down the street and saw the pretty girls in the sun, I put doubt into his mind. He would have been a saint, but within a decade we shall have him." "Nice one," said Crowley helpfully. "I have corrupted a politician," said Liger. "I let him think a tiny bribe would not hurt him. Within a year we shall have him." They both looked expectantly at Crowley, who gave them a big smile. "You'll like this," he said. His smile became even wider and more conspiratorial. "I tied up every portable telephone system in central London for 45 minutes at lunchtime," he said. There was silence, except for the distant swishing of cars. "Yes," said Hastur. "And then what?" "Look, it wasn't easy," said Crowley. "That's all," said Liger. "Look, people." "And exactly what has that done to secure souls for our master?" said Hastur. Crowley pulled himself together. What could he tell them? That 20,000 people got bloody furious? That you could hear the arteries clanging shut all across the city? And that then they went back and took it out on their secretaries or traffic wardens or whatever, and they took it out on other people in all kinds of vindictive little ways, which, and here was the good bit, they fought up themselves. For the rest of the day, the knock-on effects were incalculable. Thousands and thousands of souls all got a faint patina of tarnish, and you hardly had to lift a finger. But you couldn't tell that to demons like Hastur and Liger. 14th century minds, the lot of them, spending years picking away at one soul. Admittedly, it was craftsmanship, but you had to think differently these days. Not big, but wide. With 5 billion people in the world, you couldn't pick the buggers off one by one anymore. You had to spread your effort. But demons like Liger and Hastur wouldn't understand. They'd never have fought up Welsh language television, for example, or value-added tax, or Manchester. He'd been particularly pleased with Manchester. "The powers that be seem to be satisfied," he said. "Times are changing. So what's up?" Hastur reached down behind a tombstone. "This is," he said. Crowley stared at the basket. "Oh," he said. "No." "Yes," said Hastur, grinning. "Already?" "Yes. And, it's up to me to..." "Yes." Hastur was enjoying this. "Why me?" said Crowley desperately. "You know me. Hastur, this isn't, my scene." "Oh, it is, said Hastur. "Your scene, your starring role. Take it. Times are changing." "Yeah," said Liger, grinning. "They're coming to an end for a start." "Why me?" "You are obviously highly favoured," said Hastur maliciously. "I imagine Liger here would give his right arm for a chance like this." "That's right," said Liger. Someone's right arm, anyway, he thought. There were plenty of right arms around, no sense in wasting a good one. Hastur produced a clipboard from the grubby recesses of his Mac. "Sign here," he said, leaving a terrible pause between the words. Crowley fumbled vaguely in an inside pocket and produced a pen. It was sleek and matte black. It looked as though it could exceed the speed limit. "It's a nice pen," said Liger. "It can write underwater," Crowley muttered. "Whatever will they think of next?" mused Liger. "You're very good at reading. You give the characters such personality." I try. I could do better at times, but I'm glad you're enjoying it so far. So, "Whatever will they think of next?" mused Liger. "Whatever it is, they'd better think of it quickly," said Hastur. "No, not A.J. Crowley. Your real name." Crowley nodded mournfully and drew a complex wiggly sigil on the paper. It glowed redly in the gloom just for a moment and then faded. "What am I supposed to do with it?" he said. "You will receive instructions," Hastur scowled. "Why so worried, Crowley? The moment we've been working for all these centuries is at hand." "Yeah, right," said Crowley. He did not look. Now, like the live figure that had sprung so lively from the Bentley a few minutes ago, he had a hunted expression. "Our moment of eternal triumph awaits." "Eternal? Yeah," said Crowley. "And you will be a tool of that glorious destiny." "Tool? Yeah," muttered Crowley. He picked up the basket as if it might explode, which, in a manner of speaking, it would shortly do. Okay, he said. I'll, be off then, shall I? Get it over with. Not that I want to get it over with, he added hurriedly, aware of the things that could happen if Hasta turns in an unfavourable report. But, you know me, keen. The senior demons did not speak. So, I'll be popping along, Crowley babbled. See you guys, see you. Great. Fine. Ciao. As the Bentley skidded off into the darkness, Liga said, What's that mean? It's Italian, said Hasta. I think it means food. Anything to say then? Liga stared at the retreating taillights. You trust him? He said. No, said Hasta. Right, said Liga. It'd be a funny old world, he reflected, if demons went around trusting one another. Crowley, somewhere west of Amersham, hurtled through the night, snatched a tape at random and tried to wrestle it out of its brittle plastic box while staying on the road. The glare of a headlight proclaiming it to be Vivaldi's Four Seasons. Soothing music. That's what he needed. He rammed it into the Blaupunkt. Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Why now? Why me? He muttered, as the familiar strains of Queen washed over him. And suddenly, Freddie Mercury was speaking to him. Because you've earned it, Crowley. Crowley blessed under his breath. Using electronics as a means of communication had been his idea, and Below had, for once, taken it up, and, as usual, got it dead wrong. He'd hoped they could be persuaded to subscribe to Cellnet, but instead they just cut into whatever it happened to be that he was listening to at the time and twisted it. Crowley gulped. Thank you very much, Lord, he said. We have great faith in you, Crowley. Thank you, Lord. This is important, Crowley. I know. This is the big one, Crowley. Leave it to me, Lord. That is what we are doing, Crowley, and if it goes wrong, then those involved will suffer greatly. Even you, Crowley. Especially you. Understood, Lord. Here are your instructions, Crowley. And suddenly, he knew. He hated that. They could just as easily have told him. They didn't suddenly have to drop chilly knowledge straight into his brain. He had to drive to a certain hospital. I'll be there in 5 minutes, Lord. No problem. Good. I see a little silhouette of a man. Scaramouche, will you do the fandango? Crowley thumped the wheel. Everything had been going so well. He'd had it really under his thumb these few centuries. That's how it goes. You think you're on top of the world, and suddenly they spring Armageddon on you. The Great War, the last battle, heaven versus hell. 3 rounds, 1 fall, no submission, and that'd be that. No more world. That's what the end of the world meant. No more world. Just endless heaven, or, depending who won, endless hell. Crowley didn't know which was worse. Well, hell was worse, of course, by definition. But Crowley remembered what heaven was like. It had quite a few things in common with hell. You couldn't get a decent drink in either of them for a start, and the boredom you got in heaven was almost as bad as the excitement you got in hell. But there was no getting out of it. You couldn't be a demon and have free will. I will not let you go, let him go. Well, at least it wouldn't be this year. He'd have time to do things. Unload long-term stocks for a start. He wondered what would happen if he just stopped the car here, on this dark and damp and empty road, took the basket and swung it round and round and let go, and... something dreadful, that's what. He'd been an angel once. He hadn't meant to fall. He just hung around with the wrong people. The Bentley plunged on through the darkness, its fuel gauge pointing to 0. It had pointed to 0 for more than 60 years now. It wasn't all bad being a demon. You didn't have to buy petrol for one thing. The one time Crowley had bought petrol was once in 1967 to get the free James Bond bullet hole in the windscreen transfers, which he rather fancied at the time. On the back seat, the thing in the basket began to cry, the air raid siren wail of the newly born. high, wordless, and old. It was quite a nice hospital, thought Mr. Young. It would have been quiet too if it wasn't for the nuns. He quite liked nuns. Not that he was a, left footer or anything like that. No, when it came to avoiding going to the church he stolidly avoided going to was St. Cecil's and All Angels, no nonsense C of E. And he wouldn't have dreamed of avoiding going to any other. All the others had the wrong smell. Floor polish for the low, somewhat suspicious incense for the high. Deep in the leather armchair of his soul, Mr. Young knew that God got embarrassed at that sort of thing. But he liked seeing nuns around, in the same way that he liked seeing the Salvation Army. It made you feel that it was all right. That people somewhere were keeping the world on its axes. This was his first experience of the Chattering Order of St. Beryl, however. St. Beryl Articulatus of Krakow, reputed to have been martyred in the middle of the 5th century. According to legend, Beryl was a young woman who was betrothed against her will to a pagan, Prince Casimir. On their wedding night, she prayed for the Lord to intercede, vaguely expecting a miraculous beard to appear, and had in fact already laid in a small ivory-handled razor suitable for ladies against this very eventuality. Instead, the Lord granted Beryl the miraculous ability to chatter continuously about whatever was on her mind, however inconsequential, without pause for breath or food. Deirdre had run across them while being involved in one of her causes, probably. The one involving lots of unpleasant South Americans fighting other unpleasant South Americans, and the priests egging them on instead of getting on with proper priestly concerns like organising the church cleaning rota. Hey Eerie, welcome on in. Yes, we're doing a story time. Yes. Yes, the second book. We started off with a short story. We started off with The Sleeper and the Spindle. Very good. It's a very good little short story. Very enjoyable. I was going to say the VOD will be up on here, and I will be uploading the VOD to my YouTube channel as well. So you can go back and watch the earlier story if you wish to. But yeah, we've now moved on to Good Omens, which is a book I have read before, but I very much enjoy it. It's an excellent book, and so because of that, I felt I would read it again on stream for you all to enjoy. According to one version of the legend, Beryl was strangled by Prince Casimir 3 weeks after the wedding, with their marriage still unconsummated. She died a virgin and a martyr, chattering to the end. According to another version of the legend, Casimir brought himself a set of earplugs, and she died in bed with him at the age of 62. The Chattering Order of St. Beryl is under a vow to emulate St. Beryl at all times, except on Tuesday afternoons for half an hour, when the nuns are permitted to shut up and, if they wish, to play table tennis. The point was, nuns should be quiet. They were the right shape for it. Like those pointy things you got in those chambers Mr. Young was vaguely aware your hi-fi got tested in. They shouldn't be, well, chattering all the time. He filled his pipe with tobacco. Well, they called it tobacco. It wasn't what he thought of as tobacco. It wasn't the tobacco you used to get, and wondered reflectively what would happen if you asked a nun where the gents was. Probably the Pope sent you a sharp note or something. He shifted his position awkwardly and glanced at his watch. One thing though, at least the nuns had put their foot down about him being present at the birth. Deirdre had been all for it. She'd been reading things again. One kid already, and suddenly she's declaring that this confinement was going to be the most joyous and sharing experience two humans could have. That's what came of letting her order her own newspapers. Mr. Young distrusted papers whose inner pages had names like lifestyle or options. Well, he hadn't got anything against joyous sharing experiences. Joyous sharing experiences were fine by him. The world probably needed more joyous sharing experiences. But he had made it abundantly clear that this was one joyous sharing experience Deirdre could have by herself. And the nuns had agreed. They saw no reason for the father to be involved in the proceedings. When you thought about it, Mr. Young mused, they probably saw no reason why the father should be involved anywhere. He finished thumbing the so-called tobacco into the pipe and glared at the little sign on the wall of the waiting room that said, for his own comfort, he would not smoke. For his own comfort, he decided he'd go and stand in the porch. If there was a discreet shrubbery for his own comfort out there, so much the better. He wandered down the empty corridors and found a doorway that led out onto a rain-swept courtyard full of righteous dustbins. He shivered and cupped his hands to light his pipe. It happened to them at a certain age, wives. 25 blameless years, then suddenly they were going off and doing these robotic exercises in pink socks with the feet cut out, and they started blaming you for never having to work for a living. It was hormones or something. A large black car skidded to a halt by the dustbins. A young man in dark glasses leaped out into the drizzle holding what looked like a carry cot and snaked towards the entrance. Thank you for the hydrate, Zen. I will take care of that now. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Lovely. Thank you for that, Zen. I appreciate it. Mr. Young took his pipe out of his mouth. "You've left your lights on," he said helpfully. The man gave him the blank look of someone to whom lights are the least of his worries, and waved a hand vaguely towards the Bentley. The lights went out. "That's handy," said Mr. Young. "Infrared, is it?" He was mildly surprised to see that the man did not appear to be wet, and that the carry cot appeared to be occupied. "Has it started yet?" said the man. Mr. Young felt vaguely proud to be so instantly recognized as a parent. "Yes," he said. "They made me go out," he added thankfully. "Already? Any idea how long we've got?" "We," Mr. Young noted, obviously a doctor with views about co-parenting. "I think we were, getting on with it," said Mr. Young. "What room is she in?" said the man hurriedly. "We're in room 3, said Mr. Young. He patted his pockets and found the battered packet which, in according with tradition, he had brought with him. What's it that he just lets you take drink? It just reminds me to have a drink and hydrate. Yep. It's more of a reminder, especially if I'm doing something like reading. I might kind of I can get absorbed into it. It can be a bit difficult to, especially like when you're playing games and stuff. I can get distracted. So, yes, it's just a little friendly reminder to say, hey, have a drink. Just a way that you guys can take care of your streamer. We're in room 3, said Mr. Young. Would we care to share a joyous cigar experience? He said. But the man had gone. Mr. Young carefully replaced the packet and looked reflectively at his pipe. Always in a rush, these doctors, working all the hours God sent. There's a trick they do with 1p and 3 cups, which is very hard to follow, and something like it, for greater stakes than a handful of loose change, is about to take place. The text will be slowed down to allow the sleight of hand to be followed. Miss Deirdre Young is giving birth in delivery room 3. She is having a golden-haired male baby we will call Baby A. The wife of the American cultural attaché, Miss Harriet Dowling, is giving birth in delivery room 4. She is having a golden-haired male baby we will call Baby B. Sister Mary Loquacious has been a devout Satanist since birth. She went to Sabbat school as a child and won black stars for handwriting and liver. When she was told to join the chattering order, she went obediently, having a natural talent in that direction, and in any case knowing that she would be among friends. She would be quite bright if she was ever put in a position to find out, but long ago found that being a scatterbrain, as she put it, gave you an easier journey through life. Currently, she's being handed a golden-haired male baby we will call the Adversary, Destroyer of Kings, Angel of the Bottomless Pit, Great Beast that is called Dragon, Prince of this world, Father of Lies, Spawn of Satan, and Lord of Darkness. Watch carefully. Round and round they go. Is that him? Said Sister Mary, staring at the baby. Only I'd expected funny eyes, red or green, or teensy-weensy little hoofykins, or a whittled tail. She turned him around as she spoke. No horns either. The devil's child looked ominously normal. Yeah, That's him, said Crowley. Fancy me, holding the Antichrist, said Sister Mary, and bathing the Antichrist, and counting his little toesy woesies. She was now addressing the child directly, lost in some world of her own. Crowley waved a hand in front of her wimple. Hello, hello, Sister Mary. Sorry, sir. He is a little sweetheart, though. Does he look like his daddy? I bet he does. Does he look like his daddy Waddykins? No, said Crowley firmly. And now I should get up to the delivery rooms, if I were you. Will he remember me when he grows up, do you think? Said Sister Mary wistfully, sliding slowly down the corridor. Pray that he doesn't, said Crowley, and fled. Yes, thank you, Eerie. Thank you very much. Eerie, that is an excellent description. That is an excellent explanation of why we have hydrate redeems. We'll have to go back because I'm low battery, but we'll soon be back. No worries, Need. I appreciate you being here. Thank you very much for joining us. Toesy Woesies, yes, I love this bit of the book. It's so good. And the comment about the text being slowed down to allow the sleight of hand to be followed is... it's so good. I love it. Sister Mary headed through the nighttime hospital with the adversary, destroyer of kings, angel of the bottomless pit, great beast that is called dragon, prince of this world, father of lies, spawn of Satan, and lord of darkness safely in her arms. She found a bassinet and laid him down in it. He gurgled. She gave him a tickle. A matronly head appeared around a door. It said, Sister Mary, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be on duty in room 4? Master Crowley said, Just glide along. There's a good nun. Have you seen the husband already? He's not in the waiting room. I've only seen Master Crowley, and he told me... I'm sure he did. I'm sure he did, said Sister Grace, voluble firmly. I suppose I'd better go and look for the wretched man. Come in and keep an eye on her, will you? She's a bit woozy, but the baby's fine. Sister Grace paused. Why are you winking? Is there something wrong with your eye? You know, said Sister Mary, hissed archly. The babies. The exchange. Of course. In good time. But we can't have the father wandering around, can we? Said Sister Grace. No telling what he might see. So just wait here and mind the baby, there's a dear. She sailed off down the polished corridor. Sister Mary, wheeling her bassinet, entered the delivery room. Miss Young was more than woozy. She was fast asleep, with a look of determined self-satisfaction of someone who knows that the other people are going to have to do the running around for once. Baby A was asleep beside her, weighed and name-tagged. Sister Mary, who had been brought up to be helpful, removed the name tag, copied it out, and attached the duplicate to the baby in her care. The babies looked similar, both being small, blotchy, and looking sort of, though not really, like Winston Churchill. Now, thought Sister Mary, I could do with a nice cup of tea. Most of the members of the convent were old-fashioned Satanists, like their parents and grandparents before them. They'd been brought up to it and weren't, when you got right down to it, particularly evil. Human beings mostly aren't. They just get carried away by new ideas like dressing up in jackboots and shooting people, or dressing up in white sheets and lynching people, or dressing up in tie-dye jeans and playing guitars at people. Offer people a new creed with a costume and their hearts and minds will follow. Anyway, being brought up as a Satanist tended to take the edge off it. It was something you did on Saturday nights, and the rest of the time you simply got on with life as best you could, just like everyone else. Besides, Sister Mary was a nurse, and nurses, whatever their creed, are primarily nurses, which had a lot to do with wearing your watch upside down, keeping calm in emergencies, and dying for a cup of tea. She hoped someone would come soon. She'd done the important bit, now she wanted her tea. It may help to understand human affairs to be clear that most of the great triumphs and tragedies of history are caused not by bad people being fundamentally good or fundamentally bad, but by people being fundamentally people. There was a knock on the door. She opened it. Has it happened yet? Asked Mr. Young. I'm the father, the husband, whatever, both. Sister Mary had expected the American cultural attaché to look like Blake Carrington or J.R. Ewing. Mr. Young didn't look like any American she'd ever seen on television, except possibly for the avunculus sheriff in the better class of murder mystery, with a little old lady as the sleuth, and no car chase unless they're done very slowly. He was something of a disappointment. She didn't think much of his cardigan either. She swallowed her disappointment. "Oh yes," she said. "Congratulations. Your lady wife's asleep, poor pet." Mr. Young looked over her shoulder. "Twins?" he said. He reached for his pipe. He stopped reaching for his pipe. He reached for it again. "Twins? No one said anything about twins." "Oh no," said Sister Mary hurriedly. "This one's yours, and the other one's, someone else's. Just looking after him till Sister Grace gets back." "No," she reiterated, pointing to the adversary, destroyer of kings, angel of the bottomless pit, great beast, and that is called dragon, prince of the world, father of lies, spawn of Satan, and lord of darkness. "This one's definitely yours, from the top of his head to the tips of his hoofy woofies, which he hasn't got," she added hastily. Mr. Young peered down. "Ah, yes," he said doubtfully. "He looks like my side of the family. All, present and correct, is he?" "Oh, yes," said Sister Mary. "He's a very normal child," she added. "Very, very normal." Something of a disappointment, just like me, for real. Ah, Zen. Zen, you're not a disappointment, honestly. There was a pause. They stared at the sleeping baby. "You don't have much of an accent," said Sister Mary. "Have you been over here long?" About 10 years, said Mr. Young, mildly puzzled. "The job moved, you see, and I had to move with it." "Must be a very exciting job, I've always thought," said Sister Mary. Mr. Young looked gratified. Not everyone appreciated the more stimulating aspects of cost accountancy. You can tell it's late and the name is a mile long when Jay starts stumbling over the words. It is a long name. It is quite a long name. The adversary, destroyer of kings, angel of the bottomless pit, great beast that is called dragon, prince of this world, father of lies, spawn of Satan, and lord of darkness. It's quite a mouthful. "I expect it was very different where you were before," Sister Mary went on. "I suppose so," said Mr. Young, who'd never really thought about it. Luton, as far as he could remember, was pretty much like Tadfield. The same sort of hedges between your house and the railway station, same sort of people. "Taller buildings for one thing," said Sister Mary desperately. Mr. Young stared at her. The only one he could think of was the Alliance and Leicester offices. "And I expect you go to a lot of garden parties," said the nun. Ah! He was on firmer ground here. Deirdre was really keen on that sort of thing. That's me introducing myself at parties. Of course, Rolf. Of course. An excellent title. It's good to use your full title. "Lots," he said with feeling. "Deirdre makes jam for them, you know, and I normally have to help with the white elephant." This was an aspect of Buckingham Palace society that had never occurred to Sister Mary, although the pachyderm fitted right in. "I expect they're the tribute," she said. "I read where these foreign potentates..." Oh god, this was a mouthful. "I read where these foreign potentates give her all sorts of things." "I'm sorry?" "I'm a big fan of the royal family, you know." "Oh, so am I," said Mr. Young, leaping gratefully onto the new ice floe in the bewildering stream of consciousness. "Yes, you knew where you were with royals. The proper ones, of course, who pulled their weight in the hand-waving and bridge-opening department, not the ones who went to the discos all night long and were sick all over the paparazzi." It is possibly worth mentioning at this point that Mr. Young thought that paparazzi was a kind of Italian linoleum. "That's nice," said Sister Mary. "I thought you people weren't too keen on them, what with revolting and throwing all those tea sets into the river." She chattered on, encouraged by the orders, instructions that members should always say what was on their minds. Mr. Young was out of his depth, and too tired now to worry about it very much. The religious life probably made people a little odd. He wished Miss Young would wake up. Then one of the words in Sister Mary's wittering struck a hopeful chord in his mind. "Would there be any possibility of me possibly being able to have a cup of tea, perhaps?" he ventured. "Oh my," said Sister Mary, her hand flying to her mouth. "Whatever am I thinking of?" Mr. Young made no comment. "I'll see to it right away," she said. "Are you sure you don't want coffee, though? There's one of those vending machines on the next floor." "Tea, please," said Mr. Young. Throwing tea into the water. Boston tea. Yes, slight reference there. "My word, you really have gone native, haven't you?" said Sister Mary gaily as she bustled about. Mr. Young, left with one sleeping wife and 2 sleeping babies, sagged on a chair. "Yes, it must be all that getting up early and kneeling and so on. Good people, of course, but not entirely compos mentis. He'd seen a Kent Russell film once. There had been nuns in it. There didn't seem to be any of that sort of thing going on, but no smoke without fire and so on." He sighed. It was then that Baby A woke and settled down to a really good wail. Mr. Young hadn't had to quiet a screaming baby for years. He'd never been much good at it to start with. He'd always respected Sir Winston Churchill, and patting small versions of him on the bottom had always seemed ungracious. "Welcome to the world," he said wearily. "You get used to it after a while." The baby shut its mouth and glared at him as if he were a recalcitrant. Oh God, I can't read that word. As if he were a recalcitrant general. Sister Mary chose that moment to come in with the tea. Satanist or not, she'd also found a plate and arranged some iced biscuits on it. They were the sort you only ever get at the bottom of certain tea-time assortments. Mr. Young's was the same pink as a surgical appliance, and had a snowman picked out on it in white icing. Blech. "I don't expect you normally have these," she said. "They're what you call cookies. We call them biscuits." Mr. Young had just opened his mouth to explain that yes, so did he, and so did people even in Luton, when another nun rushed in, breathless. She looked at Sister Mary, realised that Mr. Young had never seen the inside of a pentagram, and confined herself to pointing at Baby A and winking. Sister Mary nodded and winked back. The nun wheeled the baby out. As methods of human communication go, a wink is quite versatile. You can say a lot with a wink. For example, the new nun's wink said, "Where the hell have you been? Baby P has been born. We're ready to make the switch, and here's you in the wrong room with the adversary, destroyer of kings, angel of the bottomless pit, great beast that is called dragon, prince of this world, fire of lies, spawn of Satan, and lord of darkness drinking tea. Do you realise I've nearly been shot?" And as far as she was concerned, Sister Mary's answering wink meant, "Here's the adversary, destroyer of kings, angel of the bottomless pit, great beast that is called dragon, prince of this world, fire of lies, spawn of Satan, and lord of darkness. And I can't talk now because there's this outsider here." Whereas Sister Mary, on the other hand, had thought that the orderly's wink was more on the lines of, "Well done, Sister Mary. Switched over the babies all by herself. Now indicate to me the superfluous child, and I shall remove it and let you get on with your tea with His Royal Excellency and the American culture." And therefore her own wink had meant, "There you go, dearie, that's Baby B. Now take him away and leave me to chat with His Excellency. I've always wanted to ask him why they have those tall buildings with all the mirrors on them." The subtleties of all this were quite lost on Mr. Young, who was extremely embarrassed at all this clandestine affection and was thinking, that Mr. Russell, he knew what he was talking about. No mistake. Sister Mary's error might have been noticed by the other nun had not she herself been severely rattled by the Secret Service men in Miss Dowling's room, who kept looking at her with growing unease. This was because they had been trained to react in a certain way to people in long flowing robes and long flowing headdresses, and were currently suffering from a conflict of signals. Humans suffering from a conflict of signals aren't the best people to be holding guns, especially when they've just witnessed a natural childbirth, which definitely looked as un-American way of bringing new citizens into the world. Also, they'd heard there were missiles in the building. They're just doing the exaggerated title thing on purpose, lol. 100%. Yes, 100%. Miss Young stirred. "Have you picked a name for him yet?" said Sister Mary archly. Said Mr. Young. "Oh no, not really. If it was a girl, it would have been Lucinda, after my mother, or Germaine. That was Deirdre's choice." "Wormwood's a nice name," said the nun, remembering her classics. or Damien. Damien's very popular. How are we doing for time? I think we've just come to the end of a chapter, so I think we'll leave it there for today, because we've been going for about 2 hours now. Put my bookmark in place so that I don't forget where I am. And yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there. But yes, thank you very much everybody for coming in today and joining me to listen to me reading books. That was quite a bit of fun. I will definitely look at doing this fairly regularly. But I appreciate all of you coming in today. Thank you again to all of the new followers who have joined us today. I'm very grateful for all the support. So lovely to see people here. Zen has said thank you very much for being here. Rolf, thank you for being here too. Emmy, as always, thank you for lurking. I hope I didn't put you to sleep. I know you moved to the bed, but I hope you haven't fallen asleep just yet. Eerie, I appreciate you coming in as well. I hope there'll be more Tozy Wozy comments in the future. But yes, background ideas, library, big chair, crackling fire, cup of tea on the table. Yes, I'll definitely have a look. I'll definitely look at getting that set up for the next time I stream. I'll create a new scene specifically for when I'm doing any ASMR content, specifically reading. So, but yes, as I said, I appreciate you all being here. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'll have a quick look to see if anyone I following currently online. I think they're about to finish. It's okay. We can leave it. We can leave. We can raid another time. It's all good. We've got plenty of time to raid people. But yes, I'm very grateful for you all for being here today. Thank you very much for joining us. Library on fire, cup of tea tipped on chair, cracking table. Yes, best not get those mixed up. Best not guess those words mixed up. But yes, as I said, thank you very much for coming in, and thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. I hope you all have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. I hope you all take care of yourselves. Make sure to drink plenty. Make sure you keep yourselves fed. Go to bed, Zen. I hope that anybody who is in or near my current time zone is thinking of going to bed soon. Fingers crossed. I shall be. I have got to get up for work tomorrow, and I have got a long drive into the office. So we need to get plenty of rest tonight. But yes, I hope you all do take care of yourselves. Look after yourselves both physically and mentally, and hopefully we'll catch you all very, very soon. It's only 4:47 there. Well, I was gonna say, yeah, American. No, well, still, make sure you're getting plenty of rest then. Make sure you're looking after yourself. But yes, thank you very much everybody for joining us today. I hope to catch you all tomorrow. Tomorrow we will be playing some more Dredge. I think we're going to be getting close to finishing it off. I think we're getting close to the end of the second DLC. And so once that's done, we'll finish the main story. So this could potentially be our last Dredge stream tomorrow. So yeah, hopefully I'll see you all there. In the meantime, take care, and I will see you all later.